if you'll see something that is not in the interest of the people, on the Democrat side, it's going to come because of the unions, which is just another form of monopoly.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Elon Musk made he made a lot of news last week. First by announcing that he is a Republican. Adam, let's play that.
And I would class myself as a moderate, and neither Republican nor Democrat. And in fact, I have voted overwhelmingly for Democrats historically. Overwhelmingly, like I'm not sure. I might never have voted for a Republican, just to be clear.
Right.
Now this election, I would.
Now, Elon coming out as a Republican would only be a surprise to you if you don't know anything about bosses or his record. In 2014, he donated $10,000 to Greg Abbott. In 2015, he donated $50,000 to Rahm Emanuel, who is not technically a Republican, but he may as well be.
He, certainly is a right-winger and was the nemesis of the Chicago Teachers Union and really, the Chicago social justice movements the entire time he was mayor.
In 2017, he donated at least $50,000 to Republicans. So look, I don't care if Elon as an individual votes for Republicans. It's really neither here nor there. It's not going to make a whole lot of difference. His money is like where his power is, right? His power doesn't come from Elon as an individual in the voting booth. Like, who gives a shit, right? It doesn't matter. His power is in his money, and he's been using that money to support reactionary, anti-worker politicians on the Democratic side and the Republican side for years. As long as he's had the money to throw around, he's been doing exactly that. But let's see why he says that he's coming out. Now, let's play that clip.
The Democratic Party is overly controlled by the unions and by the trial lawyers, particularly the class action lawyers. And generally, if you'll see something that is not in the interest of the people, on the Democrat side, it's going to come because of the unions, which is just another form of monopoly, and the trial lawyers. That's where actions will be happening from the Democrat side that are not in the interest of the people. And then, to be fair, on the Republican side, there's if you say like where there's something like not ideal happening, it's because of corporate evil and religious zealotry. That's generally where the bad things will be coming from on the Republican side that are not representative of the people. So. In the case of Biden, he is simply too much captured by the unions, which was not the case with Obama. So in the case of Obama, you could have, he was sort of quite reasonable, and I think he took more of a view that, obviously you take the concerns of the unions into account, but there are bigger issues at stake, and unfortunately, Biden does not do that.
I wish we had the Biden he thinks we have.
Yeah, I mean, wow.
Corporate evil and religious zealotry, apparently not as big of a deal as trial lawyers and unions that represent about 10% of the country's workforce. Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
There.
Rai in the chat says, dude goes full teal here. He gives away the whole game. The right only uses culture war as a way to destroy unions. And I mean, that's exactly.
Absolutely. This is so revealing. And I don't want to jump the gun.
No.
Go point there, because if you think about it, corporate evil, which he named specifically as something Republicans are about, and he's accurate there.
Right.
How do we fight back against corporate evil? The corporate evil that is producing Gilded Age level of inequality, corporate evil that is literally destroying our ecosystem and threatening the existence of our civilization and all life on Earth as we know it. Corporate evil that is represented in the form of a global empire, corporate evil that leads to war and destruction all across this planet, corporate evil. That's what we experience as working class people. And how do we fight back against that? Well, we don't have many tools in our tool belt to really fight back against it. If you are an individual worker and you've been screwed by your boss, by your workplace, your options really are to go to the union and or to a lawyer.
Right.
Now, there's, of course, direct action. There's demonstrations. There's petitions, boycotts. That's not to say that there aren't other means of forcing change, but it's very revealing that those are the two things that he focuses on. The fact that people will go to unions and to class action lawsuits to seek justice, to seek remedy. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that his own companies have a horrible record when it comes to union busting, when it comes to discrimination and earning class action lawsuits. But the truth is, most bosses, most owners really don't give a shit about you. They only care about the value you create. And to get them to respond to your concerns takes power.
Right.
That involves the collective power of a union, and that involves the credible threat of litigation. And as a labor advocate in my past, I can tell you there were many situations that I got resolved to the benefit of the worker only because the bosses realized there was a credible threat of litigation.
Right.
In fact, I think you've got a story coming out of Chilton County schools later in overtime that would be a good example of that. I've dealt with those similar type issues because, unfortunately, the way our world works in this capitalist economy is that the power is concentrated at the top, and the bosses know that you depend on this salary or this wage to be able to feed your family. They know where the power lies. They know what they can get away with, and they are constantly pushing those lines and pushing those boundaries. And, being able to file an EEOC complaint, being able to take someone to court under the Fair Labor Standards Act for, taking them to the Department of Labor for violating overtime pay, those are some of the few weapons we have. And, it's one of the only ways you can actually get some real change at the ground level. So I think it's very revealing that that's what he's highlighting here. I think he's being overly charitable to the Democratic Party, frankly, to assume that they're captured by these things.
Right.
As someone who is a worker, as someone who has been a labor advocate, I don't see that. I don't see that the Democratic Party is, just dominated by labor unions and by, our kind of lawyers, the lawyers who would take up our cases and fight for us. So I think that's just but it's revealing that I guess he fears that because there's obviously a momentum here in this country that Luis was just talking about. There is a momentum of organizing across various industries. We see that public opinion polls are heavily in favor of unions. People support unions by and large. People want a union if they don't have one yet. And if they don't have a union, they still support the unions that they're aware of that are working in Amazon and Starbucks to organize.
Right.
And so I think there's a sense that the labor movement is resurgent, that people as workers are reevaluating things. That's why they're resigning. That's why they perhaps are willing to file lawsuits. That's why they're willing to file complaints with federal agencies. And so, I think we should probably take it as a compliment that Musk is out here putting his cards on the table like that, because it reveals there is a certain sense of fear among the ruling elites.
Absolutely.
We are waking up.
And Jeff Bezos is doing the same thing. He's acting incredibly bizarrely on Twitter now, quote tweeting the president, trying to dunk on him and things like this. Just super, totally out of character stuff that Bezos is doing. because he, Amazon donated like $1 million to Black Lives Matter or something, right? And so, these the two richest people in the world who tried to, for decades, present a liberal facade are now, their masks are falling off, and they're showing themselves to be, just the same as any other capitalist, and they're aligning with the party that most helps them, and of course both of these parties help them, but they're now coming out. The Republicans have always really, really gone to the mat for capitalists, and Democrats have tried to have generally speaking, they want
to have it both ways.
They want to have it both ways, and they try to be a party of the boss and the worker. And so, of course, they're doing most of the time they're doing more to serve the boss, but they're throwing bones to people, and so and they've been throwing more bones lately, and just imagine think about how little the average worker's life has changed since Biden took office. I think we're not shy about...
Or to the extent that it's changed, how much of that's actually been positive or negative.
Right. We're not shy about saying that there's a difference, but the difference is for most people pretty marginal. And that marginal difference is causing these lunatics to freak the hell out.
Yeah.
Could you imagine being the richest person in the world and having a breakdown about what is going on right now as far as worker power and everything?
Right, because we actually
crazy.
have an NLRB that is doing its job for the first time in my lifetime. And one of our commenters, wisely pointed out how these government agencies, such as the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, for example, or Department of Labor, generally speaking, the odds are stacked against you. It's not as if, and I know this is sort of a public misconception. People act as if you can just file these frivolous lawsuits on a whim for discrimination or for wage theft or other issues, and the freak out over litigation is not in touch with reality.
No,
because the reality is, especially in a place like Alabama, where the judges up and down are reactionaries, is that you're probably going to lose, no matter how much evidence you have for your case. No matter how strong it is, no matter how strong your lawyer is, the odds are stacked against you.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that to dissuade you from pursuing it, but it's just a reality. And I'm glad one of the commenters pointed that out. They said they've been in the situation multiple times and they always lost despite evidence. And believe me, I know that feeling.
Right.
I've lost an arbitration despite clearly, having the evidence on my side, and I've lost cases on behalf of other workers that it was no dispute, as any objective person could have seen that we were in the right and the employer was in the wrong, but the system is stacked against us. And I say all that to say, as stacked against us as it is, even that is too far for people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. Right. They don't want us to win ever. No. The idea of even having the opportunity to file a complaint that probably isn't going to win is too much for them.
Well, that's why I said trial lawyers too, right? Trial lawyers. What is he's talking about class action lawsuits there, and the alternative to class action lawsuits is me as an individual consumer somehow finding thousands of dollars to hire a lawyer for myself to get back $30 that AT&T stole from me.
Right.
That's not going to happen. And so what happens if we don't have class action lawsuits? There's no way for me to get back the $30 that AT&T stole from me. the law goes unenforced.
So there's barely any accountability in the system as it is today, but even that small window of accountability and opportunity for redress is just too far. And I think what it goes to is that if you look at the economic statistics of this country, it's very clear we are in a Gilded Age era. If you look at the wealth and income inequality of this country, it's very reminiscent of the Gilded Age right after the Civil War. And what I see would be the capitalist elites in this country want to return us to the similar political, social, cultural conditions of the Gilded Age. We already have the inequality,
right?
So they want all the other stuff that comes with that,
right?
To finally undo what's left of the welfare state, what's left of the New Deal and the Great Society, and the trust busting.
Right.
All those, reforms over the past century that were fought for, that people died for, however inadequate they may be, that is a bridge too far for these folks. They want complete and total control and power, and they don't want to give up any of that power. They don't want any of us to have any opportunity to fight back when we're screwed over on our wages, when we are discriminated on the job. I guess the only option, I don't know. I don't know that they want us to have any option whatsoever.
Well,
they much prefer to deal with it, I guess, if they have to, with binding arbitration and non-disclosure agreements.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.